amply clear that war has never been India's choice. We are with the side of peace. We are neither new.
Hello and welcome. I'm Asima Katauka and you're watching the World Report on NewsX World. Let's take a look at the top headlines of this hour. The US military has said that it killed one person in a strike on a low-profile vessel allegedly suspected of carrying drugs in international waters in the eastern Pacific Ocean. Meanwhile, the US Southern Command confirmed the strike on social media website X. Southern Russian region's governor Vladimirov has said a Ukrainian overnight drone attack sparked a fire at an industrial facility in Russia's southern Stavropol region. There were no injuries reported, while he did not specify which facility was on fire as well. US Navy said 2 people have been killed after Mexican Navy plane crashed in waters off of the US state of Texas while carrying out a medical transfer. The Mexican Navy said that 8 people were traveling aboard the aircraft. 4 people were rescued alive as rescue efforts still continue. Sudan's Prime Minister has called on the UN Security Council to back a peace plan for the war-torn country that calls for ceasefire and global monitoring of the conflict. Since April 2023, Sudan's army has battled the Rapid Support Forces. The war has killed many and displaced millions. Vietnam's Communist Party chief To Lam is seeking a new mandate as the country's top leader and has earned a reputation as an ambitious risk-taker whose brief initial tenure was refined by rapid sweeping reforms and a commanding leadership style, as senior officials of the Communist Party has ruled Vietnam unopposed for decades. Thailand's central bank chief, the Finance Ministry and the Security and Exchange Commission will hold a briefing on the baht today. This move follows a surge in the currency as the baht has gained 10% against the dollar so far this year to become Asia's best performing currency. Australia is moving towards its toughest gun laws after a deadly Sydney attack. New South Wales will vote on sweeping restrictions and a ban on terrorist symbols to boost public safety. NVIDIA plans to ship H200 AI chips to China before Lunar New Year. Pending approval, the move follows a US policy shift of allowing sales with a 25% fee. Now, if we move on to US strikes, the US military has again struck an alleged drug trafficking boat in the eastern Pacific Ocean, killing one so-called narco-terrorist. US Southern Command has shared a 27-second video of the strike on X, adding that the vessel was operated by designated terrorist organizations in international waters and was transiting along known narco-trafficking routes in the eastern Pacific. The US military has now conducted a minimum of 27 strikes on alleged drug trafficking vessels in the eastern Pacific and Caribbean Sea since early September, killing at least 105 people so far. The Pentagon has alleged that the boats were carrying drugs and heading towards the US. Now, for this discussion, we welcome retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Dr. Kochhar, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now, looking at this, how realistically feasible is this, US's move to counter narco-terrorist or narco-drugs smuggling towards US? Is this realistically the long-term solution for countering drugs to US?
Thank you. This is a very interesting discussion right in the morning.
Thank you.
You see, what is happening is that
Yes.
maritime security has become a very big challenge today, especially in the Eastern Pacific and the Indo-Pacific region. And what we are seeing is predominantly towards the African coast, a large number of these narcotic activities through the maritime route are taking place. Uh, the only way you can counter them is to contest their movement in the sea. And that is what the United States is doing because earlier it used to be law enforcement missions where the coast guards were actually involved, but now we are seeing vessels from the US Navy, which are basically military vessels, because at times when you encounter these narcotic vessels, they tend to resist, and they are also armed. So that is why these you come under the gray zone operations, as we call it. And in these operations, preemptively, United States has been very, very active. It has been subjecting these vessels which are carrying out this narcotic trade, especially uh, when uh, you find a particular intelligence report suggesting that these vessels are on the move, and also when the United States carries out these activities, it is also sending a signal to China that we are active in this region. The second is to Latin American cartels, because these cartels are normally operating with state protection. So that would also be a very important message which is being sent. And this type of dominance in the sea, I think, is required because there is no other way you can prevent these drug trafficking or this uh, narcotics trade to take shape as of now. And largely it is through surveillance, signal intercepts, communication dominance, and these kind of measures are being used in the high seas to target these vessels.
And do you think that U.S. doing this, all these measures, and you have rightfully mentioned and laid down all for us, do you think it can achieve what it wants to through these measures?
Definitely, I think there is actually no other way. I presume that because this drug trafficking, narcotics is not going to end, because this is a mafia, state controlled, state managed, state cooperated. So it's deep into the governance of the countries also. It's not superficial. And it has got its roots all over the world. We have heard about the triangle in Afghanistan, Thailand, Laos, Myanmar. That area also, the Golden Triangle, it is called. That area also, this narcotics works very efficiently. And in this part of the country where the African and the Latin American countries are involved, Venezuela, Mexico, and all these areas, these are also very predominantly where the drug trafficking is very, very rampant. So I think this works like a deterrence, and it's required these kind of security drills and this kind of surveillance and this kind of patrolling of the high seas is required to send signals, deterrence to the cartels that it won't be very, very easy for them to move around in these areas.
Retired Major General Dr. Kochhar, please stay with us as we come back to you for our next discussion as well. Now moving to our next news, U.S. Representative to the United Nations Ambassador Jeffrey Bartos has said that the responsibility to end the civil war in Sudan lies with the Sudanese Armed Forces and the Paramilitary Rapid Support Forces. Meanwhile, Sudanese Prime Minister Kamel Idris has urged the UN Security Council to stand on the right side of the history by supporting his government's plan for peace in his country. Since April 2023, Sudan's army and the paramilitary rapid support forces have been locked in a conflict, which has killed tens of thousands of people, displaced nearly 12 million people, and created the world's largest displacement and hunger crisis. Let's listen in to what the two have shared.
Let me be clear. The onus is on the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces to end this horrifying conflict now. Under President Trump's leadership and at his direct instruction, Secretary Rubio and Senior Advisor Boulos have offered a way forward via a humanitarian truce. We urge both belligerents to accept this plan without preconditions immediately. We also call on all parties to honor their humanitarian commitments, including refraining from attacking civilians and allowing full, safe, and unhindered humanitarian access throughout the country.
Initiative can mark the moment when Sudan stepped back from the edge and the international community, you stood on the right side of history. Let this council be remembered not as a witness to collapse, but as a partner in recovery. I am here today, distinguished members of the Security Council, therefore, to seek your undivided attention and full support.
Now for this discussion, we welcome back retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar. He's an international relations and defense expert, joins us live from New Delhi. Thank you very much, Major General Dr. Kochhar, for staying with us. Now looking at this, it's surprising to me that UN is kind of pushing the responsibility towards Sudanese and the RSF forces to, kind of solve your own problem. What's your take? And if I recall correctly, there was only one mediation effort made by UN towards ending this war.
You see, this war has got protracted. It's more than 3 years now. This war is on between the Sudanese armed forces and the rapid support forces. And rapid support forces is something like a paramilitary force. And they don't want to lose control of their areas, and they have got certain militia with them. And this fighting now has spread from Khartoum into Darfur and Kordofan and other strategic zones, and I think the UN must intervene because both of these factions or these leaders are unwilling to come to the table for a discussion to end this war, because there have been earlier instances also. There was a proposal 3 years back that these rapid action forces, the rapid support of forces, could actually merge into the Sudanese armed forces, but then there was a tough war, and who will actually head, and losing control of the command and the leadership was an important aspect as far as the rapid support forces were concerned. So this did not actually work out, and for any kind of a settlement, there has to be a mediator. And if no mediation effects have taken place, I think it is a failure of the United Nations, because it is the responsibility of the United Nations. They have a charter. And as per that charter, peacekeeping and peacemaking and peace enforcement are the three important pillars of the charter. And if the UN is not trying to get into this situation, I think it's not a good trend, or it is not a good initiative, because this war must come to an end. The people are suffering there in Sudan. I'm saying there has been a large humanitarian crisis there. People don't have anything to eat there. A scarcity of food is there. The World Food Program of the United Nations is a must get into their act here. So I think the larger actually question is that we are on the precipice of a state collapse.
Yes,
And
indeed.
when such a situation, a humanitarian situation is developing in this region, I think the United Nations must get into the act, and the peacekeeping and the peace enforcement has to take place.
Yes. What do you think? What has discouraged, United Nations to further mediate between them, and why has none of the organizations like ECOWAS or African Union been successful in mediating?
This is a very, very far-reaching question, because to a large extent, the
Yes.
United Nations is controlled by the United States thought. And the United States also, if you would have noticed, has distanced itself from this area since 2021. So possibly the United States was feeling that uh, its reach was not being heard in these areas, and these leaders were not adhering to whatever advisories the United States was trying to give them. So I think UN to a large extent is dictated by the foreign policy as far as the United States is concerned. So we see that its coaction is not taking place with regard to the African Union. I think they have tried on a number of occasions. It's not that they haven't, tried. They have tried on a number of occasions, but possibly there hasn't been a kind of a concerted effort, I would say, or a continuous effort, I would say, because efforts have taken place in gaps and they have not fructified. So we need a well organized mediation or a negotiation kind of a mechanism to be put into place, like what we actually saw in the Gaza and the other areas where Thailand and Cambodia are also at war with each other. I believe they're also now moving towards a ceasefire. So we have to put in a concerted effort here, and I think it is beyond the African Union here to normalize things. The United Nations, must come into the picture as soon as possible.
100%. Thank you for highlighting that. With that, I would like to thank retired Major General Dr. Rajan Kochhar for joining us today and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Israel. The leaders from Israel, Cyprus, and Greece have held a joint press conference in Jerusalem where they reiterated their commitment to cooperation in order to achieve stability in the region and beyond. Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu has said that Israel has agreed to deepen security cooperation with Greece and Cyprus. The Greek Prime Minister, Kyriakos Mitsotakis, and Cypriot President Nikos Christodoulides have emphasized cooperation in the fields of connectivity, energy, and security. Meanwhile, let's listen into what the leaders have shared.
We need today to deepen our security and defense cooperation. The threats we face are real. Together, we're defending not only our own nations, but vital sea lanes and critical infrastructure that the global economy depends on.
We discuss defense and security cooperation. We can do much more, and we'll do so. Also, within the 3+1 framework, recognizing at the same time that much more can be achieved in the fields of counterterrorism, cyber, and energy security, always in support of regional stability.
Stand ready to contribute to the day after through diplomacy and stabilization efforts. I think we're a country that is well respected in the region, and should there be an opportunity to play this role, we will certainly embrace it.
Now for this discussion, we welcome Mr. Sacha Machta. He's a political commentator, joins us live from Tel Aviv. Thank you very much, Mr. Machta, for joining us again. Good to see you. Now,
good to see you too.
Thank you. Now, looking at these three countries, what is the motive behind these three countries' cooperation, and what are the strategic interests that's driving these three countries together?
This is not the first trilateral meeting between Israel, Cyprus, and Greece. They've had over 10 meetings in the past decade, and before, originally they were made to focus on energy, on Israeli oil, and on Eastern Mediterranean waters, all in the framework of energy cooperation. Of course, in the past years, especially since the October 7th war began, these actual meetings for energy turned into more of an opportunity to also discuss the elephant in the room, which was Turkey. Turkey is a common threat to both of these three nations, whether to Israel in Syria and in Gaza, where Turkey is trying to establish a presence in these two critical areas on Israel's borders, and of course through their backing of Hamas and their ideological support for the atrocities of October 7th, whether it's in Cyprus that they've been occupying the northern part of Cyprus since 1974, or Greece, where they've had historical feuds, of course, and conflicts over the sea borders, where the sea limits reach for each country, and of course energy control. They have a troubled relationship, Turkey, with each of these three countries, and the threat is growing. The analysis is that Turkey hopes to and aspires to reestablish the Ottoman Empire, and they have expansionist ambitions. So this is something that Israel is actively working to stop and to deter, which is why it's so important to meet with Greece and Cyprus, which are our two main allies in this slow struggle against a NATO state, Turkey, which on one side is of course in NATO and has a Western hat. On the other side, they are basically committing everything that Israel is accused of, whether in the past the genocide in Armenia, whether now the occupation of northern Cyprus, or their oppression of the Kurds, and of course most recently their expansionist ambitions to reestablish the Ottoman Empire, and this must be stopped. So we saw a transition from energy cooperation purely to more security-focused dialogue, with reports even going around, not confirmed, but reports going around that they're supposed to establish and looking to establish a joint cooperation force between the three countries.
Thank you for laying it out all there. And Mr. Majda, so you know, as you mentioned, that these three countries have a shared enemy or interest. What challenges might arise in turning these commitments that they make on energy, connectivity, security into concrete outcomes?
Of course, one of the main issues with dealing with Turkey is that it's a NATO country, it's a US ally. So it's very complicated to, on one hand, boost security cooperation and establish a joint security force to counter the Turkish threat, while also navigating with the fact that they are relatively in a strong position on the international arena. And we're going to have to see how it transitions from just energy, which is something that is not seen as much of a threat around the region, especially to Turkey, to actual defense cooperation. Of course, Turkey has already taken a side and has taken a position against Israel, against Cyprus, against Greece historically, but even more now. Erdogan, when he entered, I remind the viewers that he appeared to be more of a pragmatic leader, a more liberal-minded. He was talking about the LGBTQ community, about protection, and slowly he's turning in Turkey into a more radicalized country, a more Islamic ruled country. A lot of people talk about, and there's a famous saying that Iran will be the new Turkey and Turkey will be the new Iran. And this is a little bit telling of the slow revolution that has been undergoing in Turkey with Erdogan, of course, with no freedoms for the minorities, with the harsh treatment of the Kurds, with the democratic backsliding that's been undergoing. So how are we going to counter this threat while also understanding that they're a NATO country? This is going to be the main challenge facing us. But of course, with challenge also comes great opportunity. There's an opportunity to establish the IMEC, the Israel-Middle East, India-Middle East corridor, and it would have a great potential from India to build a corridor that bypasses all of these enemy waters, that bypasses the Yemenis water, where the Houthis have been actively interfering with global supply, And this would create an opportunity to create this corridor between India and the Middle East, passing through Israel, Cyprus, and Greece into Europe. So the opportunities are there. It's just going to be how the threat of Turkey is going to be countered without actually risking a confrontation.
Thank you very much. With that, I would like to thank Mr. Sasha Machta for joining us from Tel Aviv and sharing that insight. Thank you very much. Now we move on to Albania. Protests have erupted in Albania's capital after new corruption allegations against the government in Tirana. Demonstrators hurled firebombs at the building housing Prime Minister Edi Rama's office, demanding his resignation. The unrest follows the indictment of Deputy Prime Minister Belinda Baluku, accused of using state funds to favor companies in major infrastructure projects. Baluku has denied the claims, calling them lies, and says she will cooperate with investigators. Prosecutors are now seeking to lift her parliamentary immunity and allow her arrest. It is unclear when Parliament, controlled by the ruling party, will be voting. Riot police have guarded the building but did not confront protesters. Baluku also oversees the infrastructure ministry, which manages hundreds of millions of euros. Now we move on to our next news. An investigative reporter who is best known for exposing fraud at Silicon Valley blood testing startup Theranos has sued Elon Musk's XAI, Anthropic, Google, OpenAI, Meta Platforms, and Perplexity for using copyrighted books without permission to train their artificial intelligence systems. New York Times reporter and Bad Blood author John Carreyrou has filed the lawsuit in a California federal court with 5 other writers, accusing the AI companies of pirating their books and feeding them into the large language models that power the company's chatbots. The lawsuit is one of the several copyright cases brought by authors and other copyright owners against tech companies over the use of their work in AI training. Another important detail is that the case is the first to name XAI as the defendant. According to experts, unlike other pending cases, the writers are not seeking to band together in a larger class action, a type of lawsuit they said favors defendants by allowing them to negotiate a single settlement with many plaintiffs. That's all we have time for. Keep watching NewsX World for more news updates from around the world.
In the midst of death, life persists. In the midst of untruth, truth persists.